Guys, this is proving to be. I've never had this issue before. Let me just say, like, we've never had a problem doing this. So, we're so sorry this is taking so many tries, but I can't even rotate my phone now. It's not letting me rotate my phone like it usually does to be able to get live. Like, I don't even know if I did something wrong to my phone to be able to hop on live with you. See if you can invite yourself and see what happens. Maybe I can rotate then. But I've never had this issue hopping on, so this is very interesting. Can I invite you? Add you. It says adding.
All right, so we had to do it this way.
This is the weirdest thing ever.
Oh, I know, this is fucking crazy. I gotta put you. Well, at least we can talk. That's important, you know?
Yeah, I'm both here. That's important. So sorry, you guys. This has been like the battle of the century up in here, trying to get us on screen for you guys. We'll figure this out for next time, we promise. Right now, we don't.
Well, it's like, I mean, the video may be off, but the content's going to be on. You know.
Oh, show. Okay, let's hope that my tripod actually does its job. That'd be great. Okay.
You got frozen, but I don't know if it's you or me.
So, you seem like
this is going to be interesting. This is going to be an interesting night. All right. Yeah, because the Wi-Fi was really funky here this morning, but it's been working for like Facebook Live and stuff, so we'll see.
Okay. I'm just sharing this out as well.
Okay.
So please say hi as you're hopping on. We're so sorry this has taken like a million tries to get up, but we're having some difficulty here with video. So that's weird. We've never had this issue before.
No, we haven't. Send out the good juju for everything to go smoothly, because this is such a good topic.
Indeed. Posted, shared. Word. Do you want to kick this topic off by how you decided to talk about it? Because I think that's good.
Okay. All right, so I reached out to Shakti this morning. And I was like, all right. Yeah. So I reached out to Shakti this morning and I was like, I have an idea for tonight's podcast. I want to talk about the importance of like how you break your patterns, right? And how that's played out. It's like how to interrupt your patterns and how that's played out in my own life. So for those of you who are new to our podcast or who are new to my personal journey, I've been living on the road since July of last year. But it wasn't until really the beginning of April that I really headed out on the road. I kind of got stuck in Mississippi for 8-9 months. And so what I've noticed since being on the road is that it's really easy for me to fall back into my own patterns, right? So often we say that we want something in our outer world to change in order for us to feel a certain way. Like once our outer circumstances change, then we can feel a certain way, then we can act a certain way, then we can do certain things. And I found myself really kind of getting stuck in that groove. And I had a lot of coaches telling me like, no, Ann, it's when you it's when you kind of get into the energy of what it is that you want, then your outer circumstances can change, right? So I've been very aware of realizing that when I go from place to place, it's easy because it's my comfort zone to kind of retreat back and not venture out and try new things, or to get stuck into a routine, right? So when I was talking to Shakti about this, I said it's been really interesting because I've made it a point every single day to do something different, even though I'm in a small town, right? I'm in small town, North Carolina, and it would be really easy to get into kind of my typical day-to-day type groove. I've been changing things up. So on Friday, for instance, Fridays, typically I don't work. I don't take clients. I don't work unless I feel some sort of inspiration to work. Fridays are really my additional self-care days and to go have fun. And so I gave myself the permission, even though ego was like, you haven't hit your goals yet. You haven't done this yet. You haven't done that yet. You don't deserve to have fun. And I was like, you know what? This is what my Fridays are for. So I decided to go have fun. And I ventured out to all these little shops in town, and through breaking my pattern, right? Through breaking my pattern of what would be sitting around and scrolling Facebook, or, you know, even reading a book, or just kind of chatting with friends all day, I broke my pattern and I left the house, right? And I went to new places. I decided to venture out. And through that, I went to a small shop that invited me to teach a class in May. So that was huge because I originally was supposed to be leaving here yesterday. I was supposed to leave yesterday. And because I ventured out and went to the shop and met someone who I wouldn't have otherwise met, I'm now staying in Murphy, North Carolina for another 2 weeks. In addition to that, I randomly walked into a bakery. I thought I was going into the shop next door, and I went to the bakery, and Margie's actually on tonight. I'm so excited. And I met this amazing woman who I had an incredible conversation with, and I really feel like I made a new friend. I really truly believe that I made a lifelong friend that, again, I would not have made necessarily had I not ventured out. And then beyond that, when I got back here, I was chatting with the host about the fact that, you know, I had such an amazing day and I booked this class that I wasn't even like trying to book. And like, I did not go into that store being like, I wonder how I can teach a class in a couple of weeks. You know, I was just like admiring all the stuff in the store. And when I was telling my host about it, she was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Do you need a place to stay? And I was like, yeah, I totally do. But I was still in like ego mindset of like, but I don't know how it's going to work out. Like I have a budget I need to look at, you know, because I'm still working things out. And without even missing a beat, she was like, do you want to stay here for free? So Margie, your manifesting bracelet totally works, FYI. and it was just like completely blew my mind. And then it happened again yesterday. I typically go to this one church. So there's 2 Unity churches in Blairsville, Georgia. And I had been going to the same one multiple times. Like I went to the Sunday service, and I've been going on Tuesdays, you know, for the Course in Miracles classes. And so I was like, I'm gonna go back to that same church because that's where I'm comfortable. That's where I've been going. I know people there. It feels familiar, right? Like you guys understand this comfort zone. And like 30 minutes before I was getting ready to leave, I was like, you know what? There's another Unity church, and I've actually been wanting to check it out. So I know this is my comfort zone, and I know this is what I typically tend to do on Sunday mornings or on Tuesday afternoons or whatever, but I'm going to venture out and try something else. And I ended up meeting someone who I'm hanging out with this week. So it's like I've been meeting people, and, you know, you just never know who you're going to meet, what connections you're going to make, what path you're going to go down by just simply breaking the pattern and breaking the monotony of this is what I typically do, and therefore I should always do it. And that's how this topic came up.
Amen. I have so much to add to this conversation just because I feel like Ann and I live parallel lives. Like we literally have similar tracks happening at the same time in like completely different circumstances. So while this is happening for Ann, at the same time that's happening, if you've been following my journey or new to my journey, you know, I've been in Mexico for the past week, which was an incredible trip that I got to go on with my company, Beachbody. I'm a fitness coach with them. And it was an amazing trip for 1,000 reasons, but it was definitely outside of my comfort zone for a couple of reasons. For one, it involved leaving my son, which I had not done since the day that child came out of my vagina and was born into this world. I never left that kid behind. So I literally was like panicking the whole time, imagining leaving to go on this trip. But I was like, you've got to go. Like, you earned this trip. It's going to be amazing. You've got to go. Add on to that all of the horror news stories that were being fed to me by my loving familiars, family members, of like all the murders that are happening in this foreign country, right? So they're just prepping me to get really excited about going to this country where these terrible things are happening according to the news media. So now I'm dealing with like the anxiety of leaving my son, and then I have the anxiety of my family members just spoon feeding me all these horror stories right before I leave to go on this trip. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going to go on this trip. Like, it does not matter. I'm going to go on this trip. And I'm like pushing through it, and I'm like working through the anxiety, and I'm voxering in, and I'm doing all the things that we talk about doing all the time. And I also ended up going on a wave of a trip where most of my team was not gonna be. So the majority of my team, in fact, all of my team, was on the second wave of this trip. So I was also going alone, which was like a little bit of anxiety inducing because I wasn't gonna see my friends or hang out with them. But it felt like the right track for me to be on, the right trip for me to take. So needless to say, being someone who lives with anxiety, it doesn't really take much to be out of your comfort zone. Okay? Like, it doesn't take a whole lot for you to be like, this is a stretch. Like, when you live with anxiety, pretty much like choosing a spoon over a fork is enough to like fucking trip you out. That's like the truth about anxiety. Okay? So if you put this trip to Mexico into perspective, I was legit freaking out the entire time that I was like getting ready to go to this trip. My excitement / anxiety wires were fucking super crossed. And it was like, if I got very excited, I would just fall right over into a pit of despair, like real quick. That's how that was working for me. So I get on this plane and I go over there, and not only do we have like the best time, the best tour guides, the most amazing accommodations, the most spectacular, like grade A 5-star resort treatment. On top of that, I end up meeting amazing coaches that I become fast friends with, one of whom happens to be in the business a lot longer than I am and is a high-ranking coach in the business, and just freely invited me into this huge community of Latin American coaches that I had not been a part of up until now, and opened up so many professional doors for me that I, up until this moment, had not tapped into. And it was all because I decided to take this trip, which was way out of my comfort zone, again, for a lot of reasons. And, you know, my husband's family came to stay with our son, and they had an amazing time with him, and he was amazing with them. And everything went well, and everything turned out amazingly, right? But it's because I allowed that to be the case. Like, I allowed myself to take a trip that, even though I had a lot of anxiety over, I like allowed myself to experience the experience of being there. I allowed the family to come and spend time with our son. I allowed him to have independence from me and just be who he is. But a lot of that was really stepping out of a routine, a strong routine that I have held close to me since the day that kid was born, that I was really not wanting to interrupt, even though the opportunity was so enticing. It was still terrifying to me, to be completely honest with you. And then I mentioned that to Anne, and then I also talked about within my relationship, my marriage. I talk about my marriage quite a bit, and it's because that's another place where I feel like it's really common for us to get stuck in these like routines, these habitual ways of being with each other, this passive aggressive back and forthness that ends up happening between partners, and this like, you know, not spending time together, getting in the habit of just being on your phones and not talking, or getting in the habit of expecting them to do or be something and then you not really communicating your needs or your wants. A lot of like silence and like not enough communication. Like, that's extremely common to happen in pretty much every relationship that I know. And it just gets accepted as normal, especially like when you have kids. You're like, yeah, we don't talk. Like, we have children, you know, like that's like normal. Like, yeah, we don't have a relationship anymore because we have like 2-year-olds, you know, like that's how it is. But that one I have found to be the most powerful example of how interrupting a pattern is like insanely potent. Like when you are going to respond to your partner in a certain way and you choose not to do that thing and you actually choose to do the opposite of that thing, or you ask yourself a very powerful question that Anne is going to present in the next couple minutes, like, what would happen if I did this instead of this? And then you make that choice and you allow yourself to see how that plays out. That's a really powerful way to interrupt a pattern. It's a very simple way. Like getting curious enough to be like, what would happen if I made this choice versus this choice when it comes to like a relationship? And I think like partners, probably partners and children are two of the easiest ones we fall into. Like just having these habits that are really toxic around each other because we step into this routine and we just become really kind of robotic about the way that we relate to each other. And so that question, I want you to talk about the question because that's a really powerful question. And I think it's one that we can apply to like most circumstances, but when it comes to relationships, I feel like it's really powerful.
I think, yeah, it's powerful for relationships, it's powerful for children, and it's also really powerful if you're single living with anxiety also. You know, like I think that it's just so easy. Like, you know, Shakti talks a lot about her struggle and her journey through anxiety. And I have a very similar pattern and journey with anxiety as well. In fact, I will talk about the question, but I can speak very specifically. And I talked about this. It was either in one of my videos or a podcast that I did, podcast episode, where I talked about when I was with my previous partner and he had a work event. And he was at the work event already, and I needed to get on the train to go. And I didn't have anxiety riding the train when I lived in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 5 years. That in itself didn't bring me anxiety. But going into an unknown social situation that I did not know what to expect brought me extreme anxiety. And he was going to be working. It was a work event. So he was doing his own thing. And it was up to me to kind of mingle and talk to people. And I remember sending a message to Shakti, like, Shakti's been my person for so long. And I sent a message to Shakti and I was like terrified. I was there basically standing in the corner, like hyperventilating, not knowing what to do. So it's really easy for me to fall into the comfort level of not leaving my house, you know? And so but I'm like, okay, now that I'm on this journey, now that I'm living on the road, it's forcing me to step outside of my comfort zone, but it's a conscious choice that I make every single day to leave the house and go experience new things. So the question that I started asking myself, and I don't even know where it came from, but it just started popping up and now I'm asking it all the time, is what would the movie version of me do? Like, what would the movie version of me do? Because it's so easy, right, for us to work the typical 9-to-5 job and come home from work and sit in front of the TV for hours, or to play video games, or to scroll Facebook for hours. But if we could ask ourselves the question, what would the movie version of us do? Like, would the movie version do that? Would that be a really interesting movie?
Hell
would that
no.
be a book that you want to read?
It would be a flop. Nobody would go. Nobody would want to watch that. It's a boring ass movie. Oh, there you are, 5 hours watching Netflix. Fucking boring. No. Like even reality shows, you know what I mean? Like reality shows, they're doing things. They're not just sitting in front of the TV forever. So start asking, and it's really, what you're really asking yourself is, what would happen if I said yes to my life? Mm-hmm. What would happen if I said yes to my life? What would happen if I did something differently, right? And again, same thing. But I think it was Saturday when I came home, Saturday or Sunday when I came back. The host again was asking me, next weekend, she was like, yeah, so my sister wants to know if you want to go on an overnight hike with her. First of all, I am not a hiker. Like, first of all, who are you? Second of all, where are we going? Why are we going at night? Why is that happening?
Like, if you think about, if ego thinks about this, right? If your logical brain goes, should I say yes to hiking overnight with a stranger? Ego's gonna say, hell no. But you know what I said? You know what I said? Because I've been asking myself the question, what would the movie version do? The movie version would say, fuck yes.
She go. She go. She might have to fight for her life, but she go.
I might get eaten by a bear, but I will go.
I love that. That's hilarious. That's amazing. That's amazing. But you're like 100% right. Like, what would movie you do? You know what movie you would do? Would say yes to the business. Would say yes to going on the date. Would say yes to taking ownership of their life. Would say yes to hiking overnight with a stranger. Would say, okay, we're not recommending you do that with people that have like bad vibes. But like, obviously, Anne had good vibes with this person, so she's gonna say yes because the vibes are there. You know, she feels
Right.
safe. So you need to feel safe. But our point is, you would probably be saying yes to a hell of a lot more than non-movie version you. That's what ends up happening here. And so asking that question is a way of interrupting that pattern and being like, okay, wait a minute. I know what I would normally do in this situation. And this, man, for relationships, this is so good. Like, I feel like we idealize marriages, right? Like, you know, look at all the princess movies and all like the fairy tale endings and all that fucking shenanigans, right? And then we end up finding someone that we really love and we get in a relationship with, and they're awesome. They're awesome until they become human to us. And then all of a sudden we demonize everything that makes them fucking human. And their awesomeness goes flying out the fucking window. So, like, then we get to ask ourselves, what would movie version of myself in a loving romantic relationship do? And that doesn't feel good a lot of times because it typically involves you taking a lot of ownership for your end of the situation and stepping outside of your comfort zone. And normally we're like, nah, we'd rather.
No, thanks. I'm good.
Nah. Even though it might mean like relationship suicide, which is crazy. I actually just talked about this on the live video today. I said that we will do whatever it takes to make our stories true, including hurt ourselves.
Oh, hell yeah.
Including end our relationships that we actually love. Like,
Yep.
We will manifest the craziest shit to make our stories true of us. That's insane.
Have I been there? Yes, I have.
Yes. Everybody say I, who has done that.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. When you have a story, so my story for a really long time that played out again and again and again, my story was, I'm difficult to love. Everyone leaves me. I get cheated on. Like, those were my stories, right? Well, go figure.
Go figure what happened.
That shit happened in every single relationship until I realized I don't like that story anymore. I'm gonna change that story.
Oh.
Yep.
But
it took breaking through my codependent behaviors, right? I was so fucking codependent, and I had to really, and I talked about this relationship in the last podcast, you know, and how we were on thin ice because of some shit that I did. And it was the fear of losing that relationship, which I then lost, that really took me to wake up and be like, no more. Like, I refuse to repeat this pattern again.
And it's funny because I talked about that too in the video that I did today. Like, we are to a point where we let it get so bad before we're willing to change. We have, like, things have to get fucking terrible before we're like, maybe I should look at this pattern of self-sabotage I'm implementing in my life with fucking remarkable consistency. Maybe I should take a look at that. But no, we have to be like broke, homeless, like about to lose a relationship that we absolutely love, like 100 pounds overweight. Like, we literally let things get to the point where it's so, because of lack of self-awareness, because you're not asking yourself the question, what would movie version of me be? Or, you know, what do I want to experience, or how do I want to feel? These are all questions that we've brought up through all the podcasts that we've offered you guys. And the lack of self-awareness is what gets you to wake up and you're 150 pounds overweight. It's what gets you to wake up and you're now divorced from a relationship that you actually truly valued that was good for you. It's what leads you to these really tragic circumstances where you then have no choice but to bounce back. But how different would it be in your life if you could interrupt that pattern before it got there and you could actually turn course and like head in the direction you actually want to go to. It's not about never missing the mark, because we're human and we do that. We get distracted and ego kicks up and things of that nature happen. But it's about having enough self-awareness that you know when to interrupt the pattern, that you know because you're paying attention what the patterns are, and then you can say, okay, this shit is not serving me. Time to interrupt it, time to get curious, ask the questions, and turn the ship around. That's really what we talk about all the time. That's the whole point of even offering you guys this podcast.
Well, and after I had offered this topic to Shakti and we decided to do it, I realized that after the fact, I was like, Tony Robbins talks about this. He talks about changing your state, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not even just about like when you've hit rock bottom and not wanting to hit rock bottom anymore, but it's about, let's say you wake up and you're in a funk, right? You wake up and you're like, I don't like the way that I feel right now. I woke up and I'm in a fucking funk. What am I going to do about it? You change your state. Yeah. Or even throughout. And so what does that mean, right? One way that I used to change my state really easily, and I still do it, is just like if I'm sitting on the couch, for instance, and I notice myself kind of being low vibe, I'll get up and do something. I'll get up and, I mean, there's no dishwasher here, but in my old place, I would like get up and unload the dishwasher, or I get up and do dishes, or I get up and fold laundry, just something that takes me, it changes my state, it changes my physical state. So it breaks the pattern, it interrupts the pattern immediately. And it doesn't matter what it is, but something that interrupts the pattern so that you can change that state immediately.
And you can do that in so many ways, like anything physical. Exercise is a fantastic one.
Why we work out.
Yeah, or doing something physical, like you said, unloading a dishwasher, folding clothes. Literally, if you are in a state of non-action, like sitting down, get up and do an action. So that's what changing your state is about. Same thing could be, maybe you're running around and you're noticing that you're like crazy hectic and you're stressed out of your mind. Lay the fuck down. Just lay down, lay down horizontal and change your state. Go from here to here, close your eyes for like 5 seconds and change your state. That will automatically change how you feel internally because you're changing the physical circumstance. And you can also do that with thought patterns and exercises and asking yourself questions. This is why questions is brilliant, because your ego is always trying to solve a problem. The ego is all about problem solving. So if you give it a question, it's going to have to answer you. You can actually use your ego for self-reflection without your ego knowing that you're doing that thing. By asking it a question like, what would movie version of me do? Or how do I want to feel right now? When you ask that question, it has to populate an answer, right? So what that does is it gives you this interruption between stimulus and response. It gives you this pause, and it also allows you to self-reflect by way of your ego, giving you an answer. This is why questions are brilliant and powerful, whether you're being coached or you're self-coaching. That's why.
Yep. And Shakti and I asked very similar questions of ourselves. She's talked about asking the question of, how do I want to feel right now? Also, what do I, when you focus on all the things that are going wrong in your life, you're going to continue down that pattern, right? So you flip the script, you ask the question, what's going well in my life? What am I grateful for right now? What can I appreciate in this moment? What do I want? What do I want more of? What do I already have that I want more of? Start asking yourself the question, just veer, right? Just look in a different direction.
I had 2 conversations today, one with one of my coaches and one with one of my clients about pretty much interrupting a pattern. And the one I had with my coach was really powerful because she was talking about doing 80-day obsession, which is a fitness program that Ann and I have been doing consistently. We're on our second round of it now. And she said, all I keep thinking about is, what happens if I fail at completing this program? What is that going to look like publicly if I'm trying to help people and inspire them? And I said, girl, you're looking down the wrong tunnel. That's the problem. You're looking down the wrong tunnel. You're not asking yourself, what's it going to be like when I complete this program? And I prove to myself that I've got what it takes to be a royal badass at my life. That's the question you should be asking yourself. What's it going to be like when I succeed at this? Asking yourself, what will happen if I fail at this is already setting you up in the direction of failing at this. That's why it doesn't work. Anytime you head out to do something or whatever and your pattern, your routine is, well, I don't know because what if I fail? Or I'm just going to try and do that thing. You're already going to fail. That's it.
Yep.
It's already been decided. Every time you use the word try, you're failing. That's it. It doesn't work that way. You're doing it or you're not doing it, and you're committed to it or you're not committed to it. which is fine. No judgment either way. But that's the way that it works when you're headed in a direction. And the lens through which you look at a situation and how quickly you can interrupt your normal way of looking at a thing and decide that you're going to look at it a different way is going to dictate your level of success. I mean, it's immediate. The moment I flipped the script for her and I offered her that, she was like, oh my God, I am looking at this the wrong way. That is the question I should be asking myself. Like a light bulb went off in her mind, and she was like, you're 100% right. That's been the problem the whole time. I've been asking myself the wrong question, because that is her pattern. That is her routine. She hadn't been interrupted. She needed a coach to come in and interrupt her. Again, another plug for why coaches are valuable. Like, I know we always do this, but it's like every conversation leads back to the same thing. Like having another source to come in and say, wait a minute, let me look at that pattern you've got going on there real quick.
Well, because the thing is, if you don't know what questions to ask, you don't know what questions to ask. And until you learn, again, Shakti and I have been doing this for a very long time. We've done it for ourselves. We've done it for other people. So we know the questions to ask. And I know that we've both experienced being on the phone with people or talking to people, and we ask the questions and they're like, I never thought of that before. Right. You know, it's just like, well, because we know the questions to ask.
Right.
But Shakti's right about the whole, concept of trying. I mean, it's easy to be like, I'm going to try to eat healthy. I'm going to try to work out, like something that doesn't feel life-threatening. But like looking at my situation, for instance, I can't be like, I'm going to try to live on the road. Like, no, I sold all my shit, and I went head first into living on the road. There's no trying, guys. I'm doing it. And it's like, it's scary as fuck some days, but I'm like, oh well, I've already committed. And I did look down that wrong tunnel for a long time of what is everyone gonna think if all of a sudden I fall flat on my face. And I'm like, I was just chatting with a friend today. I was like, my biggest fear was that I was gonna end up homeless in a rental car with my cat stuck in the middle of the US. And then everyone would be like, what a fucking dumbass. Look at what happened to her. But it's like, then I realized I don't want to create that in my life. So I'm gonna focus down another tunnel.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when I went ziplining in Mexico, which was the first fucking time I got ziplining. First of all, climbing up that tower to get to the fucking zipline, I just about had a heart attack. That tower was not stable. In the U.S., it would have not been something that human beings climb on and go anywhere on. Okay? And it went on forever. I'm like, does this tower have an end? I don't know. We're just going to keep going up and see. Wearing heavy ass harness that weighs like fucking 80 pounds trying to zip me up to some rope over a lake, by the way. A body of water. That's what I zip-lined over. Terrifying. Okay? So I get up there and they, zip you up, and they do not care about your feelings, because the moment that you can go, they're just going to fucking push you down. Okay, so that's like you going up there and being like, I'm going to try to zip line, and then if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to not do it. No, you fucking can't, because the moment you get pushed off the ledge, you're going to zip line your ass down the opposite end. And now your options become, you're either going to be like, woo, this is great, so much fun, or you're going to be shitting your pants the entire time you're coming down the zip line, and nobody's going to want to get near you by the time you're down at the end. Like, those are basically your options. You're either going to be like, yay, this is a lot of fun, I'm already here, might as well just rock it, or you're going to be pooping the whole way. So, that is like a really good metaphor for life, and when you're going, it's going to happen. You're moving in you have a certain amount of momentum about you. Remember that. That zip line is like the momentum that you build around certain things. And if you're looking down that pipeline of what's going to happen if I fail, or people are going to make fun, or whatever it is that you're focusing on that's in the negative, you are literally building a whirlwind of momentum. And when you get pushed down that zip line, that's everything that you're going to experience. Everything you've been focusing on. Or you can focus on how amazing it's going to be when you succeed. You interrupt your pattern, you refocus, and then when you go down the zip line, you're like, oh, this is fucking awesome, I'm having a great time, which is what I did, and it was awesome, and I did have a great time, and it turned into a really positive experience. But I had a split-second moment while I was about to get pushed on the zip line how that was going to go. Like, I was either going to look at, this is really terrifying, or I was going to look down, this is a lot of fun. Like, the choice was mine in that moment. And it's always yours, moment to moment.
And if people are going to be on the sidelines anyway, and keep using Shakti's example, if people are, you know, standing and watching you ziplining, they're going to watch you zipline anyway, right? So are they going to watch you zipline falling flat on your face, shitting your pants the whole way? Or are they going to watch you ziplining being like, this is so much fun? And then they're like, man, I'm so jealous that, like, are they going to be jealous that you're ziplining or jealous that you're shitting your pants? Which one are they going to be jealous of? And the only time you care, again, like this goes, I teach this so many ways and everything, but the only reason you ever care what anyone thinks of you is because you don't love yourself. It's because you're looking for acceptance, validation, and love from external sources. But as soon as you give it to yourself, you give zero fucks what anyone else thinks. Like, I don't care what people say about my journey because I love myself and I'm having a blast. You know? So, like, oh, well, and if I ever fall on my face, which I don't see that happening, but if I ever do, at least I know that I tried. At least I know that I asked myself day in and day out, what would the movie version of me do? And I showed up for my life. At least I said yes to my life. And most people can't say that.
Amen. And P.S., did you die? No, you fell. So, like, get up and do the damn thing all over again. Why are you down there? You have a motherfucking choice. You have a choice the whole time. Even if you do fall flat on your face, you have a choice of how that experience goes. You have a choice of saying this was a shit experience and I can't believe I did that, or being like, you know what, it didn't really work out the way I wanted to. What can I do now? Where can I go now? It is all perspective, 100,000%. It is all perspective. And your power is in choosing your perspective. That is your power. And that is how you interrupt patterns. And we just build up so much momentum in certain directions that it then becomes hella hard to turn that shit around and spin it the other way. So the sooner you catch the tape, like the spiraling out happening, the easier it is to turn it around. The longer you're in that spiral out mode in the negative direction, it is going to take some work to bring you around. This is why practices of self-love and self-care and meditation are essential, because they basically train you to stay present so you can avoid spiraling in the direction that you don't want to go. Because if you don't know how to come present, you can't stop the ship. And if you can't stop the ship, you can't turn it around. It's just...
And then you hit a fucking iceberg.
And then you hit the
and
iceberg.
You sink like the Titanic.
Now we're in the Titanic, and it's flooding, and there's not enough boats, and that one jackass is kicking off children trying to save his own life. Okay, that's what's happening to you if you don't practice.
You're welcome.
You are welcome.
It's true though. It's so true. And I mean, obviously, yes, Shakti and I have both been in the spiraling downward, but I have really seen recently what that looks like and how that plays out. You know, my 8 months in Mississippi, there was a lot of contrast that was happening, and I saw firsthand how my thoughts dictated my actions. I saw firsthand how I got stuck in patterns, and I saw firsthand how giving into the fear, everything came true. Like those worst case scenarios that we focus on, don't focus on them because they will come true. You know, when you start to worry about things, that shit comes true. So take it from me, firsthand experience, that shit comes true. And it took turning that fucking boat around, and it was hella hard to turn it by myself, you know, but it was like, well, I know that I don't want to keep going down here because I might die. So I have to turn the boat around.
Turn that shit around. And it's so important that these practices and this kind of accountability and focus is present in your life, because you do get better at it. You get better at catching the pattern. You get better at interrupting. You get better at turning the ship around. You get better at ziplining. You do get better at it. but it is not without consistent work. And that is with most things. I mean, you've got to start and make it a part of your life to be really consistent with that. Anne and I are blessed. We have a mastermind with each other, just built into our friendship. That's how we work with each other. That's how we relate to each other. And we help each other hold space for that kind of thing around. But it is essential that you've got a system in place, something to help you remember to go to when you need to turn that around. Because I just feel like it's really hard when you're on your own, when you don't have, like, I think about as long as we've been friends and we've been doing this for each other, and I'm like, how long would it have taken us?
Well, no, and so Shakti and I have each other, and I have Shakti and I have other friends who are very awake, but Shakti's one of my main go-to people. But I was also working with a coach, and I was also in a group coaching program. Like, I had support. I was not doing, so I teach it, right? And I knew what I was doing, and I was using my tools and all of that, but I had support. I was not doing this shit on my own. And even with support, like, I want you to hear this. Even with support, there were nights I was crying myself to sleep, and I was waking up in terror and panic, not knowing how I was going to get out of this. Like, you know, so yeah, if I was doing it on my own and I wasn't as, like, aware as I am, if I wasn't self-aware, I can tell you guys, the depression would be fucking real. Yeah. Like the suicidal thoughts, and I'm just being straight up honest, would have been fucking real. It was that bad. And I've said, like, at some point I'll share what was really going on. I'm not ready to be there yet, but it's real. Like, it's totally real. And just because, you know, we teach it, and just because we're aware of it and all of that, does not mean we do not experience it. We teach it because we know it. We've lived it. We live it. We understand it. We get it.
Yeah. And it's painful, you guys. Like, if you don't feel supported in your journey, you're going to avoid doing the thing you know you need to do. You're going to avoid doing it because it's uncomfortable, and we want to avoid pain. I mean, just by design, as we are designed, we are pleasure seeking and pain avoiding. And oftentimes the avoiding pain is a lot stronger than the pleasure seeking. So even if you know you want to do a thing, or you want to move in a certain direction, or you want to whatever, and there's like this sort of promise of pleasure at the end of that, this whole, like, painful growth experience is going to outweigh the glimmer of hope that you have over here, because you're just going to get drowned out by wanting to avoid discomfort. And that's honestly what keeps people small. That's what keeps people from interrupting their patterns, is they don't want to experience the discomfort, because then they have to hold it all within themselves. And it's just a lot. It's a lot. It hurts. You know, it's painful to look at your own stuff and to really get honest with yourself about what needs to change. And this is why, you guys, there's like 1% of the population that's insanely successful. Like, maybe 2 or 3 max of the population that hit a certain level of success, because those are the people who are willing to get really uncomfortable. Those are the people who are really willing to be brutally honest with themselves and do whatever it takes to get where they want to go. But most of us aren't willing to do that. We aren't willing to experience the level of discomfort that those people are to have what they have. So we just look at them and we're like, must be nice. Must be nice. And we have no idea how much they were willing to traverse. And in fact, all of them were coached. All of them were supported. All of them had someone to turn to as a mentor or whatever to help them. That's like a fact.
Yep. Well, Shakti and I were just talking about this earlier too, because we really, like, applauded ourselves, and we totally pat ourselves on the back. We're like, we're doing so good, you know?
And we, like, high five each other, both like, you're doing good, girl.
But it's like, we look at the success that the other person is having, and we say, like, we're doing really well, and there are other people we know who are looking at us saying, why are they doing so well? Why does it seem to be working for them? And it's like, because we did the fucking work, because we showed up. And I want you to really hear, because I think so many people think that, you know, like Shakti said, 1, 2, maybe 3% of people are actually successful. We look at the 1% and we, like, shit on them for being the 1%. But the truth is that it's not just that they hustled their way. It's not that they were just grinding and working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. It's that they did the inner fucking work. The work is not in the 60-hour work weeks. The work is not in the hustle and the grind and all of that. The work is the internal work. And I can guarantee you, mark my words, quote me, that if you don't do the inner work, any success you have will fucking crumble. It will not last at all. So you might as well not even do it if you're not going to do the inner work, because you're just going to lose it anyway. It starts with, everything starts with you. And we say this every fucking week, but it starts with you.
And not only will you lose it, you won't even be able to recognize it. Like, and I see it with my own weight loss journey. Like, there have been moments in my life where I looked great. And I see that now, looking at a picture, I'm like, what the hell was I griping about? I look amazing in this picture. But in that picture, I was fucking miserable because I didn't have the perspective. I didn't have the allowance for the internal sense of well-being, which then allowed me to see myself externally with well-being eyes. I didn't have that at the time. I had self-loathing and self-deprecating eyes, which were unable to appreciate what it saw, which I now realize was fine, was perfectly fine. Okay, so if you don't do the internal work, you won't ever be able to appreciate the external presentation of anything because you'll miss it. Because guess what? Success and your vision won't be in the same frequency. So you will literally not be able to see it. I want you guys to listen to that. Even if you attain something that you think would make you happy, if your internal vibration did not match that external presentation, you wouldn't be able to see it literally with your eyes, and you definitely wouldn't be able to keep it. Hence lottery winners that lose everything, hence people who lose a bunch of weight then gain it all back. It's the same story over and over again. Your internal frequency, your vibration has to match what you are desiring, and that happens through doing the work. There's no shortcut to that.
I was just going to say, that's why we say there's no shortcut. There's no quick fix. There is no quick fix that can fix what it is that you're wanting to work through.
There's no overnight success either.
Nope.
That's like complete shenanigans. Just because you were unaware of all the internal work that that person was doing for years prior to landing something doesn't make it quick or overnight. It doesn't exist.
Nope. Luck is not a thing.
Really not. So now that we've just like detonated 1,000 bombs all over you, and with the truth about life, not that that's not a lot to handle, you know, you can deal with it. So like if you have any questions, now would be the time, because we're getting to that time frame.
I know, I'm like, are people just sitting there like drooling, like with their mouths open?
Like, annihilate their brain cells. They're like, I can't even think. I don't know what just happened this hour. Just been staring at the screen. Anybody?
We had a lot of new people on tonight too. I saw new people hopping on.
I know, and laughy faces and bombs.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's like our emojis are laughing and bombs.
I know. Laughter and truth bombs. That's what we do.
Laughter bombs.
Are you guys, how are you feeling? Do you feel like we just murdered you, or are you ziplining, or are you shitting your pants?
So we can know that we didn't just like destroy your brain cells. If you can press the heart button, then there's still hope for humanity. Oh,
I even told Shakti before we came on, I was like, this one's gonna be lit tonight. So we were like all day, she and I have been boxering, just like on fire. So I'm like, good luck to everyone who watches us tonight.
Well, we've been doing a lot of rampaging for positive things, and I think it's beginning to show up in our lives. Like, we're constantly rampaging back and forth about positive things that are happening in our lives, and that's because we understand the value of momentum. So we build momentum for each other, not just for ourselves, because we know that it matters. Oh, hearts, they're not dead.
Yay! Misty said, it's finally coming together, and you two always resonate every week. I'm so glad.
Good job, Misty. You are welcome.
I feel like people are coming back to life. They're like, okay, I can breathe again.
Hold my breath the whole time. I'll finally breathe again. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole idea of us coming together and doing this, you know. And we have a project that doesn't have an official launch date yet because of my schedule primarily. But we are going to have an opportunity like soon coming, which we'll write about on the page, and I'm sure in the next video we'll talk about it as well, where you can actually work with us and kind of take these concepts a little bit further in a more active role, like doing activities, and can talk more about it as well, since she has kind of fleshed out more like the details of it, but it'll be more like that.
Yeah, so we want to do a group coaching type feel, but I wanted it to be different than group coaching, you know, because I mean, you can get group coaching anywhere, but I really want it's really easy because I've been in multiple group coaching programs. It's really easy in group coaching to show up and then just kind of like lean back and be like, I don't really have to show up for my shit. I'll just watch everyone else do the work. And then you're like, why didn't anything change? I invested in this group coaching program. Why didn't anything change for me? Well, because you didn't do the fucking work. So what the vision that I have is for us to do kind of live activities, right? So Shakti and I have a variety of activities that we utilize in our own lives, and we really hold you accountable. So like we'll be doing it live in the moment, teaching it to you, and you're doing it so that also if you have questions, you're able to ask us. So that it's not like, okay, here's the homework that's assigned, and then you can just not do it. I mean, you still obviously have the responsibility of showing up. You choose, do I show up or not show up for my life? But it's in the moment so that you get, you know, immediate feedback.
So this means you will be live together journaling sometimes, like literally writing on paper at the same time in a collective, or doing a meditation together, or working through our own stuff together so that we can be actively engaged in the moment.
Oh, I'm so glad, Misty.
See the word for myself. I'm going to pull this closer to me because I can't actually read. Oh, you're so welcome. Writing asses is what we do best. That's what we do. It's in actually the coach book. When you decide to become a coach, like it floats down from the skies and gets handed to you. Page 1, right asses. That's in there.
Yep. Right ass and uncomfortable questions. Those are the two
That's
things.
chapter 1 and 2, actually. That's where we start. Curriculum.
The questions that just like dive deep into your soul. Those are the ones.
Yeah. And claw it out. That's where we. There's a workbook actually, chapter 1, right asses. That's the practicing questions in there.
I think it's called questions that make them cry, right?
Yeah.
Questions
That cry is actually chapter 3. Making people cry is the following chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It's in there. Followed by breakthrough. So it does end. It's not just like harass you like incessantly. There is a breaking point, as Misty is proving right now. You do
yes.
have
Yes. But I'm sure that Shakti and I have both had clients that we've worked with who are like, am I ever going to stop crying? You will. You will stop crying. You will. And it reminds me of when I first started meditating. I remember I reached out to Shakti and I was like, I was kind of on and off meditating, right? This is like 2 years ago. On and off meditating, and Shakti was helping me to get back into meditation, and she was like, you know, you need to meditate. I was like, I don't want to. She was like, what? Why don't you want to? And I was like, because I cry. I cry every time I meditate, Shakti. She's like, it won't always be that.
Normal.
I'm like, oh. But I like did not believe she was like, you're not gonna cry like for the rest of your life. I did not believe her. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna cry every time I meditate for all of time, forever and ever and ever. And I'm here, living proof, to tell you the crying does stop. It stops.
When it's done. It'll stop when it's done.
Yep.
You know.
There's a lot to release there.
Yeah. Me too aren't making me cry. My healer is, so I'm used to it. I haven't cried in weeks, so that's good. There we are, stabilizing.
Yep, it's a good feeling too.
I cry like happy moments. Like now when I cry because I'm like overwhelmed with joy. I have so much joy or so much love. Like today I had that experience. These amazing women are joining my team, and I'm like overwhelmed with appreciation for who they are. And so that makes me cry. But it's been a real minute since I've cried out of like suffering, because I've done a lot of that. And so like your system does eventually get like more stabilized until it's ready to process something else. That's just how it works.
Yep. And I've had the same moments as, I mean, not people joining my team, but I've obviously met a lot of new people, but I've also had things come way easier to me. Like things that I would have been efforting so hard at are now like easily flowing into my life. And that brings me to tears because I'm like, it reminded me of like how hard it used to be, you know, and how much it was like, you guys all know those moments where you're like trying so hard and nothing is happening and you're like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? And it feels so defeating, right? But I'm telling you, it gets easier. You just have to keep showing up and doing the work and things will flow to you.
Amen. Well, that's it, y'all. As our time with you guys. Thank you for hopping on and joining us. As always, we will be launching more details about this group activity coaching that we will be doing. We need to come up with a name that's not group.
Well, we have a name for it.
Yeah, I guess we do. It's so different than anything we've experienced that I feel like.
I think we're calling it a mastermind.
Yeah, maybe that's a good one. That's a good one.
We have a great name for it though that we're not releasing yet, but it's amazing. So Shakti and I will talk about it this week. I think we could talk about it this week and launch it next week.
For sure. So stay tuned. You'll have an opportunity to work more closely with us. As always, be good to yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Make time for yourselves. So important. All right. We will catch you next week. Share this out. Tag your peeps. As always. Oh, thank you so much, Misty. Thanks for hopping on.
Thank you for hopping on, Misty. All right. Bye, guys.
Have a good night. Bye.